Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Strife's Sanctum. My name is Citizen Strife, and this week's video game review is going to be a continuation of a franchise that I've enjoyed quite a bit for the last decade, but it's actually been around for about 35 years and is celebrating yet another release at the tail end of either 2023 or the beginning of 2024, but it is in development, and I'm talking about Ys. Now, I've talked about Ys before, as I had a very, very glowing review of Ys 8, Lacrimosa of Dana. And that was released way back in 2016, 2015, somewhere around there. Kept getting re-released. It's been re-released for PS4, PS5. I played it on my channel way back. And a couple years ago, they released Ys 9. Monstrum Nox. So, obviously I'm going to make a lot of comparisons. I'm just going to get it out of the way. 9 is not as good. That doesn't mean it's a bad game. It just means that you're basically trying to compete with absolute greatness. In terms of what 8 was able to achieve, this just isn't it. It's like one of those albums you get from a band where you know that they were just like on that like amazing fucking thing the last album ago. Then you get the new one and you're like, I see where they're going, but it's not what I wanted, not as good. So it's got some cool ideas at play, but it just doesn't have that spark of just everything working as a flash in the, a lightning in the bottle sort of situation like they had with 8. I'll describe that as best I can. A lot of the stuff, like the battle system and things, are going to be fairly similar, so I'm not going to go over all of that. But a lot of what Ys 9 does is try and take something like Assassin's Creed and its movement mechanics around the world and incorporate it into its Ys structure. Obviously, from Falcom, this is not going to be some amazingly looking game, because they're a smaller company. But they try to incorporate little, nuances into the gameplay, and they try a little bit more. So at least you have a bit more free-flowing movement in some cases. But it is still kind of structured and stiff. But the battle system, again, is what's really going to carry this day. So I've never really had an issue with the battle system, and they're going to change it, but what Ys 9 does do doesn't always hit the mark, even though I can see it's trying so hard to get to that mark, but it ends up feeling kind of rushed, despite the fact that this should be a better looking experience. This should be a better looking game than Ys 8 was. It's on a better platform. It's got a bit more development time. It's got this, and yet it for whatever reason never really clicked for me the same way 8 did. So how do we start? Well, we'll start with plot and characters, because that's really what this game boils down to for me. And the plot is a darker one, so I will give them that. This is less high fantasy and more it's not grounded in realism, but it's more like, I would say, the difference between, say, a Final Fantasy 4 swords and adventure epic kind of thing, with high fantasy and going to a different place and whatever, to Final Fantasy 7 or 8, where it's like fairly neo-futuristic for the time frame, that sort of thing, or more like the difference of going from Final Fantasy 5 to Final Fantasy 6, that sort of thing, because Final Fantasy 4 is pretty fucking dark, as bumbling as its story could be sometimes. Anyway, that's how I wanted to describe it. Anyway, Adal and Dogi, voiced again by Bryce Papenbrook and Patrick Sates, are bumbling around as usual because they're adventurers. They're adventurers, they do it. So they come to a city known as Balduke. Balduke is like this fortress city, this big fucking walled up city thing. And they're run by the Hieroglyph Knights and whatnot. And they get accosted, and Adal gets thrown in jail because in this time frame, this is set after 8. Most games are kind of bounced around in the storyline, so they can kind of be wherever. That's how they get around the whole why is Adol this age versus this age and this what So Adol and Dogi have a high profile, and Adol gets thrown in jail and questioned about it, and he escapes only to find a woman named Aprilis, voiced by Dawn Bennett. Dawn Bennett, much like most of these actors here, unless I specifically say who they are, have been kind of bit actors that I've seen or heard in other shows, but don't really know much about, so I'll bear that in mind. But Aprilis shoots Adol. Just fucking shoots him with like a magic bullet or something, and she turns him into what is known as the Crimson King. Part of this band of merry misfits known as Monstrums. There are several other Monstrums, and I'll just run down the list here. We've got White Cat, voiced by Christina V, who is Velvet in Berseria. We've got Hawk, voiced by Damon Mills. Doll, Erica Mendez, Raftalia from Shield Hero, and Darkness from Konosuba. All right, no. Christina V was Darkness. Erica Mendez was Megami. I don't know why I get that confused. It's dumb, but yes, they've been in everything. Raging Bull, Erica Harlocker, who was Anne in Persona 5, and Renegade, Griffin Burns. I'll go over the characters more in detail later. But basically, they are together, and Adol joins this merry band of dorks. This is how you get your battle system. This is how you get your setup. This is how you get your 6 people to do the tic-tac-toe system. There you go. Anyway, the idea is these 6 have been cobbled together by Aprilis to fight these things known as Lemuries. And in Balduke, they have this weird thing going on that is like all science-y and fantasy and weird and disturbing and like research thing. And she knows what's going on, but she won't tell us. She wants us to slowly piece together this mystery of what's going on in this prison that's fucking everything up. So while that's going on, there's this alternate reality full of these dark, neonish beings known as Lemuries that don't interact with real people, but could. So our job is to kill them. So we do. So we do that, and we're stuck. And until we start killing Lemuries and beating up monsters that are coming out of the prison and figuring out what's going on, we can't leave. So Adol can't leave. Dogi can't leave. Everybody can't leave Balduke. Even if they're members of Balduke or whatever, they couldn't leave if they wanted to. They couldn't go out and about and do things. So they're stuck. So you can already see where they're going with this in terms of things. Adol is a fugitive. Other characters are fugitives, and they're angry and whatever, angsty. It's got a darker mode to it. And there's the hidden, is it a scientific experiment? Is it a futuristic bullshit? Is it some weird fantasy? Like, they do some things that they're trying to go for a darker tone. Even the music. Like, I'm not even going to talk about the music so much, because I don't remember much. Like, I remember tons of the East 8 soundtrack. I couldn't tell you a song from this game that I remember. I just don't. Because a lot of it is just mood pieces. Because they're trying to set a mood. Like, yeah, you have your hard rock songs for the battle themes, but I'm like, I don't remember any of these cool stage area themes or stuff. And I'm like, it's fine. And again, that translates to the characters. So, again, what do these characters do? As far as the game progression goes, it's not as story-driven as I would have liked. In East 8, you were on a deserted island. You couldn't go anywhere, so you had to find castaways. You had to do all this stuff, and you kept going to different places and doing different things. In this, you're kind of doing that. You're still in the same city. Sometimes you go out to the other city. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes, outside the city. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you go to other areas of the city, but it all looks the same. That's the unfortunate problem, is it all looks the same. The city looks very dry. The prison looks very dry. It's very, like, browns and grays and stuff, because that's an intentional design choice. That doesn't mean I can't be annoyed that there's not, oh, here's a jungle, here's a forest, here's a thing, here's some beaches that look amazing, here's a city that looks amazing, like Eternia, here's a tower, here's a thing, it trades in the spectacle for the groundedness. If that's what you're looking for, you might find it and enjoy it. I found it very kind of drab. And again, the visuals are better-ish. I mean, like, the animations are smoother, and they are supposed to look better, and the character, like, models are touched up because they're a generation better, but they're lacking something. So it is better as the animations are for the battle system and the world traversal, which I'll get into, that doesn't seem to just add up. But as far as these characters go, well, Dogi doesn't get to do much, unfortunately. And he's still not going to do much. I heard what he gets to do in East 10, which is nothing again. And I'm like, why not just make him playable? He's Adol's friend, and he never gets to be playable. He was playable in 7, and like he's never been playable since. I don't understand it. Anyway, what's he even doing there? Only there to act as Adol's surrogate speaker, I don't know, because, again, Adol is slowly starting to speak more, but he's still not full-on protagonist because he's silent protagonist. Blech, but Aprilis is this really dark, like, beat-up figure, and she's not really a fighter, but she observes things and says, I know what's going on, and I want you to piece together what's going on. I'll give you hints here and there, but she's always kind of in the backdrop. She's even hanging in a fucking clock tower some of the time, and she does her thing. Krisha, who is White Cat. Oh, yeah. Each chapter, so I'll go over this right now, is each chapter follows the same progression. You get a character, you know who they are because they're a monstrum. The game goes, blah, you're scary, because I didn't expect you to be the monstrum. It's like, it's totally fucking obvious. The game makes it so obvious. So they make it out to be some amazing fucking thing that this person that we already know is the monstrum, And after 2 or 3 times of doing the same thing, you can see where I'm starting to get a little repetitive and a little old. Anyway, so first time, we meet Krisha Pendleton, who owns the Pendleton Trading Company, and her gift as a monstrum. Oh, yeah. So, again, I have to kind of go in a list, because this game has a lot of different facets. When as a monstrum, Adol not only changes his appearance to be a bigger, stronger-looking dude, he can zip line to a spot in the map. It's called Crimson Line. So he gets to zip around to a specific, like, hanging point or hook, like, say, Batman's grappling hook. That's kind of how that works. So he can get to higher areas. Krisha is the White Cat. She's trying to steal money to help the poor, Robin Hood kind of thing. And her thing is she can run up certain parts of the map. So it's called Heaven's Run. You see these little spots where there's like these claw marks and shit. She gets to run up the thing and go. So she's kind of squirrely and doesn't know what she wants to do with her life. And, Christina V, who I'm used to playing stuff like Velvet, but in this, she's just very demure and squirrely and whatever. It's still a good character, right? But she's the de facto girl, I guess. There isn't like a character that Adol or whomever the game is supposed to have you fall for or whatever. So Krish is like the closest surrogate. But it's kind of nice not having like a cool, like a full on, oh my god, I like this guy, romance thing. Like every time Link gets somebody to fall for them, or Adol gets somebody to fall for them. This game, not so much. Anyway, so Krisha does her thing and trying to help the unfortunate and steal some whatever, so they do their thing. Next chapter hits, you get a guy named Credo Eyeblinger. Yes, that is his name. I tried to read that again. He's Hawk, voiced by Damon Mills. So his whole thing is he's a whiny, annoying, just petulant member of the church. He's a swordsman. He's, basically Safer. So you know how much I like Safer, you know how much I like this guy. So he's annoying, he's brash, he's just annoying. His whole thing, Hunter's Descent. He can kind of glide over cliffs and shit with some wings. He can't fly, But if you jump high enough and then you glide well enough, you can get to some certain areas or get into a higher place or whatever. Next chapter, another good character, Anemona. She is known as Doll, voiced by Erica Mendez, as I said before. Anemona's whole thing is she is a living doll. And if you've ever watched something like Rosen Maiden, or think Chucky if she wasn't a fucking bloodthirsty murderer, that sort of thing. Very sophisticated, very... I talked about Shadow's house. Think of that if she was a doll. That sort of thing. She doesn't know who she is. She has no idea why she can live, why she has the monstrum powers, why she even has a thing. So she has that kind of like VV kind of vibe. She doesn't know what she's trying to be, but she's very polite, which is very nice because Hawk is a fucking asshole. So it's nice to have another polite person. And her whole thing is third eye, detective vision, detective mode, x-ray vision, that shit. Let's see, we've got Yufa Gamberg. Some of these names, I swear. Raging Bull. Not like super gigantic lady, but very stocky looking lady. Voiced by Erica Harlocker, Anne from Persona 5. Again, the idea with her is that you see a wall, you see a person with a hammer, she uses hammer, she crush wall with hammer. I mean, we could have done that with Dogi, but I'll take a woman who beats the shit up out of stuff. That's fine. I got no problem with her. But again, it's at this point of the game where I'm starting to get, okay, this is starting to get like, is there anything else to this game other than this? And then the final character is Jules Noah. He's voiced by Griffin Burns. His whole thing is he's a kid riddled with a disease that renders him in a wheelchair. Renegade's power is he can kind of seep into certain parts of the floor and then reappear. So he can get past obstacles and shit. So they have monster powers. Their notoriety has gotten the idea, like the stuff of the city. People know who they are. People know who Aprilis is, but they just call them Monstrums. So that shit's going around. They get the ire of the Hieroglyph Knights. And you're kind of always at odds with the Knights, or you're at odds with the stuff in the prison. So you got to use those powers. Shadow Dive, Valkyrie Hammer, all that shit, Crimson Light, all that stuff. So the idea with this system is you can, once you gain access to the character for their specific chapter, you unlock those specific skills to use in said dungeons, like the 1 or 2 dungeon parts that they do. And then while you're venturing through the city, you're not only given extra access to the city by doing more stuff in the game, you get like more treasures and more side questy bullshit, and then you can use Heaven's Run to run up a wall. You can use Crimson Line to check a fucking perch. You can do all sorts of things. So the traversal mechanic's pretty neat. I'm not gonna lie, the traversal mechanic is awesome. I don't know if they're gonna keep it for Nordics or not. I'd imagine they would. There's no reason they wouldn't. But again, it is tied to the monstrum power, so they may not. Which would be a shame, because I do give them credit for at least trying to make the entire map usable, because normally when you're into these games, you don't have that traversal. At most, you just have jumps and leaps and shit as contextual button presses. This is a little more freeform. If you like the exploration, this game's kind of got you covered. The battle system's pretty simple. It's the same system it's been since 7. So character does a thing. They slash, they pierce, they bash. Slashing, piercing, bludgeoning, right? And you switch the characters. You get 2 specific characters for each mode, and then the health bar. So if you've played 8, you kind of know what you're in for. The flash guards, flash moves, all that stuff. The traversal mechanics don't come into play much in battle, because they're not going to have too much of an impact. Enemies aren't like hanging off walls and things. It's not that complicated. It's mostly still the rooms. The boss rooms are the big arenas, and you do this, Issa's pretty much cornered the market on, what you're getting. We're not going to fuck with it. We're going to change it up every couple of games, so it's not the same every time. Like Nordics is going to use 2 characters and use something known as like a revenge system. So this is going to be the last time you feel that. So again, if you're kind of sick of the E7 system or the East Origin, well, not East Origin, that was first, but E7, Memories of Celceta, that sort of thing. East 8's tic-tac-toe system, this is the last one they're going to do with that, so bear that in mind. The raid system is back, and this is another one of my main issues, is crafting for weapons is back, crafting for items, gathering items, the raids. They try to justify it by saying the Lemures can get their way into the real world, even though we have no concept that they are going to. So they give us the raids again. And it's cool in 8 as a first time. In 9, it just feels kind of tacked on because we're using that engine again. So you're basically playing tower defense again, and you're doing the same thing again. You're building up your tower defense again, without the same reasoning as to, we're on a deserted island, we're protecting our stuff, we're protecting our home base from monsters that are trying to kill us. So it just feels there, But again, it's there because it was there in East 8. It's fine, whatever. The other mechanic at play in East 8 or East 9 is there are 2 adults for some reason. You have you've got the Crimson King wandering around doing all the monstrum shit, and then you have a different adult stuck in the prison trying to open doors and learn about the prison and get the research, but he has to do it as a weaker character. Some of this sucks because a lot of it is like traversal mechanics, and he doesn't have any, and you're stuck fighting guards, you're stuck fighting security systems. If you fall down a death pit that you don't expect, you die. It's rare, but it happens, and it's dumb and annoying, and it always put me in a bad mood whenever I had to do these sections at the end of a chapter. The idea is you're supposed to go to different sections of the prison and learn about the prison and meet with a guy who's your contact, that a contact or two that you have throughout the prison, because you're not the worst person in the world because you're Adol. And learning who's at fault and doing all this stuff. You learn that the Knights have been doing these research things and all that stuff. I'm not going to give it too much away because, again, that would be spoilers. I just think it's the structure that kills me, because it's you learn which character you're going to use for that chapter. You learn about them. Then you go back to the adult section for another part of the prison. Then you do the thing again with a different character. Then you go back to the prison again. Then you do that again. Then you do that again. And then by the time you get your party, you're already like, okay, how many more chapters are we going to have where everybody's doing a thing and everybody's learning a thing? Maybe 1 or 2. And then you're done. And it's like, well, that was quick. Because everything you could do in East 8 was about 60, 70 hours. This was about 30 or 40. And I don't mind that so much. I mean, a lot of it's busy work and dumb shit, like side questing. You can do side questing whenever you want. But things like, you'll do a cutscene and you'll have voiced cutscenes, and then for most of the game, you still won't, like, most of the same scene, there'll be silent voices, right? And you'll have to use text. And again, this is a personal issue, but it's like, you're doing voice clips for the rest of the fucking cutscene. Why are you going to non-voices? This sort of thing happened in East 8 too, and I was like, no. If you're going to do that, do it like 80-20 voiced, right? Not 30-70 voiced, because that's what it felt like. So there's that. There's just this overwhelming sense that everything is lesser than 8. And I don't want it to be that way, because there is some cool things at play. The world navigation is a cool idea that they may never do again, because this is a singular, like, structured area. It's a darker tone. I'm usually a sucker for darker tones, and being a prison city, being stuck in a prison, darker dystopian things, but it comes with it there's lack of music. It's more ambiance. There's lack of stakes because there's these repetitive missions and everything just looks the same from the game. because they've been following the same template for about 10 years now. That's why they're changing it for the next one. They're understanding that there's only so much left that they can kind of wring out of the tic-tac-toe system. It's still a good system that you can enjoy, but you know what you're getting. And then the add-all sections that are just littered about with, let's say it, instant death pits. Why? Why are there instant death pits in a game that is supposed to be fast and free-flowing and crazy? That's like Sonic getting stuck on a wall, you know? I'm not saying Ys is supposed to be the fastest game on the planet, but it's meant to be free-flowing and run and gun compared to a lot of other action games even. So to have these sections where, oh, if I slip, I die. If I slip, I count 4 or 5 guys that I can't kill on my ass trying to snipe me. You know, and then you're reusing mechanics from 8 without the story motivations. You're just kind of giving you a shell of a system to justify having these old systems back. So it just looks drier. It doesn't feel as good. The characters are just... I mean, the characters in 8 weren't the best, admittedly, but they were just more fun to be around, I think. I think 9, at the end of the day, just trying to do more of the same. But in trying to do different things while still maintaining more of the same, it's like half of the intensity of the game. You don't have the the Dana segments to balance that out, you know, because half of the game is centered on Dana, and because you're doing a mystery game, you're trying to center it on Aprilis. She's not a party member. She's not, you know, you're not controlling her or anything. She's just kind of mildly observing, and you're not really getting the full scope of the thing. So you're not exploring. You're unraveling a mystery, and that's not something I think they completely got right. Not that they didn't try. I just think that if you're aware of the Ys franchise, 8's better in almost every way. A lot of people say that. There's some people who like 9's tone, but it's not going to win awards. It's like a B- or C+ version of the game that I played that was an A+, which happens. It's like saying Final Fantasy V has great strengths, but it's not as fun as 6 because of this or this or this. If you like 5 more, cool. A lot of people prefer 6. Bear that in mind. That's kind of the same idea. But that'll do it for me today. Got a few episodes in mind. Next week is How Heavy Are the Dumbbells You Lift? An infotainment anime about lifting weights. It is fucking glorious. So yes, we're going to do that one. Next up, as far as games go, Secret of Evermore. I get to talk about Toaster Dog. I want to talk about Toaster Dog. It's great. But yes, Secret of Evermore is the Americanized version of Secret of Mana. It's not as good, but it's got a toaster dog. Did I mention Toaster Dog? Anyway, after that, we have Case Study of Vanitas, which is a show that, if not for Spy X Family, would have been my favorite show that I've seen all of 2022. It's not, I don't think it started in 2022. It was probably like 2020, 2021, but you see what I'm getting at. As far as shows I've never seen before, never rewatched, Spy X Family is my favorite. Vanitas came out of nowhere for me. I'd heard about it, and I was like, well, cool, and then, oh shit. All right, this is pretty good. So yes, we got those coming up, and we'll just keep on going. So I will see you guys next time. Citizen Strife, signing off.